Cuba marks the first anniversary of the death of its longtime leader, Fidel Castro. How has the Caribbean country fared over the past year? Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. It's been a year since the death of Cuba's revolutionary leader and former President Fidel Castro. Over the weekend, thousands of Cubans gathered to pay tribute to him in Havana. The events are part of a week-long commemoration that includes other political and cultural proceedings. When Fidel Castro died last year at the age of 90, there were many questions about the future of his island nation. And in a few moments, I will talk with a panel of experts about some of the important issues Cuba is now dealing with. But we begin with CGTN correspondent Michael Voss. He's in Havana. And Michael, 1 year after the death of Fidel Castro, how is Cuba marking this anniversary?
Well, Anand, you must remember that one of Fidel Castro's dying wishes was that in order to avoid a cult of personality, there were no statues to be built to him, no streets, roads or parks named after him. And the Cuban authorities have honored that wish. But in the last week, we've seen portraits, posters, banners of him appearing all over Havana. State newspapers and television have been full of articles, documentaries and discussions. He's been very prominently in the news. And as you mentioned, on Saturday evening, there was a large gala rally and gala concert, if you like. It was on the steps of the giant steps of the University of Havana, where, incidentally, Fidel Castro studied law and where he first became involved in radical politics. It was a mix of music and short political speeches. It was really something to honor his memory rather than to mourn his loss. Now, amongst the political leaders that were there, the most senior one attending was not his brother Raul Castro, but it was the first vice president, 57-year-old Miguel Diaz-Canel, who it looks will become the next president of Cuba at some point early next year. Because incidentally, on this same weekend, the Cubans were remembering Fidel and paying tribute to him. It was also the start of the electoral cycle. On Sunday, Cubans went to the polls to vote for municipal elections, the local wards, but it's the start of a cycle where you go from local elections to provincial and then to the national elections for the National Assembly of People's Power, which is their Congress or their parliament, if you like. And at that point, when it sits for the first time on the 24th of February next year, they will select a new Council of State, a new Council of Ministers, and a new president. And Raul Castro has said that he will step down. He will not seek re-election. As to the actual remembering Fidel, this is going to go on for another week. It will end, there'll be a week-long vigil, and it will end in Santiago, Cuba's second city, where there will be a procession on Sunday, the 4th of December, a year since he was buried, to the cemetery there where Fidel was laid to rest. And we believe that the president, his brother, Raul Castro, will lead that procession. Anand.
So, Michael, as you say, Raul Castro will step down. He's not planning on running again. That will happen in February. How historic is that moment for Cuba?
I mean, it will be a very important moment for almost 60 years, there has been a Castro in power. Fidel Castro for almost half a century, and then his brother. It will probably be a fairly sort of smooth transition in many ways, because Raul Castro will stay on as head of the powerful Communist Party. We don't know yet exactly who's going to be the next president. We believe that constitutionally the first vice president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, will take over as president, but it's certainly not assured, and really we have no further details on that. I think the feeling at the moment is that for the last year in particular, and in the run-up to a change of presidency, things have sort of stalled. There's been very little change. There's been not a lot of decisions have been made. And I think a lot of people I've been speaking to in the last few days say what they really are looking forward to is a younger and more dynamic leader where things will get done where the economy will prove. This is an important point, but there's no indication whatsoever that Cuba's about to change its political system, for example, when it has a new president. And the man that's expected to take over, Miguel Diaz-Canel, after voting on Sunday, did talk for the press for the first time and was very clear that the system will continue.
And Michael, talking about the economy, how has Cuba been doing in the post-Fidel era?
Very badly, but it's not really down it's down more to external factors, if you like. I mean, I think you know, you've had Venezuela, Cuba's largest ally, which has provided much needed oil, subsidized oil in return for doctors. It's going through a political and economic crisis. Much less assistance is coming to Cuba from there. You've got a new president in the White House, Donald Trump, who's making it more difficult for trade and tourism. That's having an impact. Then you have the aftermath of Hurricane Irma, which caused a lot of damage here, and that's hit the economy. So on that level, Cuba was already running low of foreign reserves. The economy has stalled. And as I mentioned, there is this sort of inertia politically at the moment, and there's been no further progress, or very little further progress, in economic reforms. The movement towards the private sector seems to have stalled. In fact, they've frozen new licenses for some sectors like restaurants and lodgings. So the economy is not in a great shape at the moment. And I think the feeling here is that it will probably take a new president and a new government really to kickstart events. Cuba is meeting its foreign debt requirements, and that is one important thing. But there's been a lot less in the shops recently. They've been importing less. The economy is really stalling at the moment.
Okay, Michael, thank you. That's CGTN's Michael Voss reporting from Havana.